Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Reasonable Doubt. We thank you for joining us tonight. We have a great show. We're going to be talking tonight about Kelly Siegler and another incident of misconduct. We're going to be talking all about Sandra Bland and the incident out at the Waller County Jail. Also, breaking news today, we had another death of an inmate in custody with the Houston Police Department, just breaking about an hour ago. We'll talk about that as well as the other death that happened earlier this week. We'll get to a couple other topics, including PR bonds here in Harris County with my panel this evening. We have two former HCCLA past presidents, Robb Fickman and Earl Musick, joining us this evening, as well as my co-host, Damon Parrish. Damon, good evening. How are you?
All right, and yourself?
I'm great. It's been a busy week, just as we talked about last week. We thought, hey, what are we going to have to talk about? And sure enough, Sunday night, the Chronicle, Brian Rogers gives us a whole new piece on Kelly Siegler.
This is the week of sequels.
So
we have Siegler again, right? A new case, same story. And now we have Harris County again. Or not again, I guess. Same story as Waller, but different counties. So this is sequels.
And this all in the same week as Sharknado 3.
Right.
Amazing.
With Mark Cuban as president.
That's right. Right.
That was a good movie.
I want to turn to our guests tonight, Robb Fickman, Earl Musick, two past presidents of the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, the organization which sponsors this show. Guys, we really appreciate you coming on. And by the way, everybody at home, send us your tweets tonight at HCCLA_TV. We'll take your questions and comments live on the air. And then about halfway through the program, around 8:30, we'll open up our phone lines. We'll put the phone number at the bottom of the screen. You can call in and ask Robb and Earl, myself and Damon, any questions you want. Guys, first off, before we get into the topics, Robb, I want to begin. This was a monumental month for you. You were the organizer of reading the Declaration of Independence on the courthouse steps. And I want to talk about that because this year you got readings in over 130 counties across the state of Texas.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on the show, to both you guys.
Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for being here.
It's nice to be back. Years back, I was the host of the show, and I have to say that it's markedly improved.
Doing the best we can.
I'd say the professionalism is up. It couldn't have, Mark did a great job before, Mark Pearl, and he still does, but a great job with the show. What happened is in 2010, we started reading the Declaration of Independence here. Earl was there. There were about 14 of us, and now it's spread by my pestering lawyers. It's spread to 139 counties. It sounds like a virus. 139 counties, criminal defense bar. 139 counties across Texas. The criminal defense bar stood and read the Declaration of Independence, and it's a good thing for the defense bar because what has happened is in each one of those communities, they're standing up, and there's a lot of local press for the defense bar in their local communities, and they get in the local paper, and it's putting the defense bar in the proper light. That is a positive light as the defenders of liberty. That's right, and I appreciate I taunted you earlier, but I appreciate you bringing it up, and I'm proud of the defense bar and all the volunteers, and we've had volunteers over the state, and we'll keep doing it. So thanks for mentioning that.
Absolutely. I think it's a great movement, and I'm really impressed just how much it's grown, and I really applaud your efforts, and thank you for your efforts, too, because it's
fun.
For us.
And Robert, I had a question for you. Are you surprised at the at the lack of non-defense attorneys to take part of this? So like more prosecutors or judges don't join in as well?
Or even civil lawyers.
Well, I'm not surprised because in Harris County, I said judges were not going to be allowed to read with us until I was dead. So I'm not surprised by that part. Really, the rule that we have in Harris County is that it's only defense lawyers or their family or staff that are invited to read. We have so many defense lawyers that it's our event, and we want to keep it a pure defense lawyer event. In some of the smaller communities, they do invite judges or prosecutors to read with them, maybe because they have to. But in Harris County, it's a defense bar event, and across the state, it's a defense bar event, and we want to keep it that. We want to sort of maintain the purity of it. And people in each community, it's grassroots, and in each community, people do what is right for them. And in one community, they had a black reverend that read the Emancipation Proclamation, which I kind of like that because we always try to make the point that the Declaration of Independence was a monumental step toward freedom and one of the greatest statements ever about freedom, but it was written by a slave owner, and not one black person was freed by it. So it's not the end; it's the beginning. And I think the basic point I try to make by us doing it is to show that we as defense lawyers, like Earl and all of us here, we're as defending people every day. We're part of that continuum that started with the Declaration of Independence in this country, that we would stand up against tyranny. And every day when we go to the courthouse, we stand up against tyranny. And some of the judges down there are little tyrants. And that's why I'm generally opposed to inviting the judiciary to join us in reading it. When they all stop acting like tyrants, not that they all do, but some do, when they stop acting like tyrants, then we'll invite them to join us. We're not going to let them defraud the public by joining us in reading. And I'm not applying that to all the judges, just a good number of them.
Well, just those friendly tyrants out there.
Those that it applies to know who they are.
I think it's a great event, and for all you defense attorneys out there, next year, please come out and join us on the courthouse steps. Okay, guys, I want to begin tonight with Kelly Siegler. We talked a lot about her last week, and this was on the heels of the David Temple findings and facts and conclusions of law. A bunch of stuff not just in the news, but all over social media. She has this show, Cold Justice, that obviously people are making a bunch out of that.
Like the title of that?
Yeah, and then as I said in our opening, Brian Rogers of the Chronicle Sunday evening drops the other bombshell of a second case where she's accused to have committed some similar acts.
Right.
And guys, I want to get your thoughts. Feel free to jump in on this latest accusation as well as the Temple findings and facts.
One of the things that motivated me to go into the career that I went into as a small child, I really wanted to be Superman, because the announcer on the show said, Superman stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And truth is so vitally important that the thing that really got me the most out of Judge Gist or upset me worse from Judge Gist's findings, was that she lied to the court. She was untruthful to the court.
Under oath, under
oath.
Right.
It meant nothing to her. Her sole purpose was to win at any cost, and that's not justice. I was a prosecutor myself, and I took it very seriously that my oath was to see that justice was done. And I feel that there's a great number of prosecutors that feel that way. Dick DeGuerin probably said it best, prosecutors don't have to cheat to win. They seem to even have an advantage. While I'm defending my client, I've had jurors tell me afterwards, when they spoke to the prosecutor, they said, Earl's opening was really, during voir dire, because he told us a little bit about himself, and he said, we as jurors don't need to know about the prosecutor because we're already on your side. And I thought, wow, that's amazing that a juror said that to me. And he said, so you don't have to tell us a lot about yourself, but try to do like Earl did during the voir dire, because the prosecutor was asking what he might do to actually be better. And it just totally shocked me that he said, we start out already on your side. So it is a tough battle to overcome.
Guys, as I read,
with Siegler, I said it last time.
Yeah.
With the Gist situation with Temple, it was a systematic denial, right? And you can see over and over again, 33 times, systematic on her approach. And now we see in another case the exact same behavior, hiding evidence, using her own judgment as to what's Brady, and that sort of thing. And so not only are we now seeing two examples of small-scale systematic denial of justice with those two defendants, we're seeing now a larger example of systematic abuses by her, which could be from multiple defendants.
Well, and in reading this, now it calls into question just about every murder case she's ever tried and every high-profile case she's ever tried, because it appears to me in reading the article and some of the allegations made by the attorneys in that there is a pattern.
Right.
Wouldn't you guys agree with that?
The same lies she used before, she used again, and probably, but for the public, each case had a very high public kind of awareness to it. We don't know how many times from murder to theft to possession of controlled substance, sexual assault, or whatever, this stuff happened.
Yeah.
Well, Earl said it right. prosecutors don't need to cheat. The average juror comes down there with a pro-prosecution bent anyway. After watching years of Law and Order on TV and watching the local news, which is very pro-cop, the average juror is indoctrinated by the time they get down there to be pro-prosecution. They don't need a prosecutor to cheat to win because they're leaning in their favor. What's really disturbing about Kelly Siegler's matter, the Temple case and now the Guidry case, is what Damon's talking about and what you're referring to, is that we're seeing a pattern here. These lawyers from Seattle that are handling the Guidry case had no knowledge, apparently, of the Temple case. And yet, through their own investigation, they've uncovered what they believe are instances of Kelly Siegler cheating to win. That is, either withholding exculpatory evidence. And for our audience, that's evidence that would tend to show the person's not guilty. And the prosecutor has a duty to provide that to the defense, which the judge found in the Temple case she did not do. And it's alleged in the Guidry case she didn't do. So, I mean, this is what I believe. People repeat behaviors that lead to success for them. Kelly Siegler was known to be a big star in the DA's office. She won supposedly 50, 60 murder cases. And if she found something that worked and she kept doing that, I don't know if she cheated on one case or two cases. If she cheated on one case to send somebody to prison, that in itself is outrageous. But the fact that there may be another case and there may be other cases, I agree with you. I would say every single case that she prosecuted probably should be looked at. But it goes to something deeper, and that is the culture of the district attorney's office, which for many years, especially during the Rosenthal years, was a win at any cost culture where people were encouraged to, I think, cross lines. Kelly herself has spoken about push it all the way to if you weren't pushing it to the edge there, you weren't doing a good job. If you didn't do something that offended the judge. She's made those statements. It's outrageous. And what has happened?
Nothing.
What has happened? No, something has happened. Yeah. She's got a friggin' TV show out of this. And do you think that Dick Wolf, the person that produced Law and Order, that whole series of Multi-Zillionaire, who's also her producer, do you think he cares about Mr. Temple? He doesn't give a rat's you know what. I have to clean up my language. It used to be that we just cuss regularly on this show. I won't do that because of the professionalism. But I mean, and so. Is it going to affect her career in TV? Probably not. They say that Nancy Grace had prosecutorial misconduct in her background. So that's the shame. That's also the shame of it, is that innocent people may have been sent to prison, and they now, Jimmy, they have a spin-off of this. They do. This cold justice. Cold justice is cheating to win, is what cold justice is.
Well, let me ask you guys about this, because
it pisses me off.
Well, and rightfully so.
Should be.
I mean, here we have, as we've talked about this culture, and we have kind of what we haven't seen before, in that we see what happened after the Anthony Graves case with Ken Anderson. We see what happened with John Bradley. And a lot of others, the Ted Stevens prosecutorial misconduct, and how those prosecutors were kind of flogged a little bit, not as much, but they were, as far as federal prosecutors go, they were hung out pretty good.
But nothing really bad happened to them, True. They cheated. If she cheated, Ken Anderson cheated on Michael Morton, Sebasta cheated on Anthony Graves, and none of them are going to go to jail for what they did. They're not going to go to jail. They're not going to go to prison. The legislature needs to pass laws that makes it criminal for prosecutors to willfully withhold exculpatory evidence. It needs to be against the law, and it needs to have no statute of limitations, because sometimes it takes years to prosecute these things. And what has the DA's office said about the other matter that was under investigation?
Well,
they said statute of limitations, we can't do anything about it. Well, there needs to be no statute of limitations. So if a prosecutor cheats and takes away somebody's liberty and basically kidnaps them and puts them in a cage, that prosecutor can be sent to prison, and that will stop this behavior. And until we get to that point, it will not stop.
Robert,
I don't mean to get riled up, but
Rob is absolutely correct when Rob mentions the fact that it's a culture, and culture is probably the hardest thing to change in any organization.
Sure.
But in order to change that culture, it has to come from the top, and it has to come down. And what's happening, and what I'm seeing in this and the other cases that we're going to talk about, I'm seeing that the actions of people like Kelly are changing the way that people feel about justice. If you stop and think about it, there's more and more people, and Robb was very involved in the Michael Martin Act when that was passed.
So were you.
And the prosecutors thought, no, you'll give us mutual discovery, or, you know, we're going to Austin and that's what we're going to ask for. And we stood up as defense lawyers and said, that's unfair to the defense. And almost all legislatures agreed. I know Robb went down and spoke to the legislatures. They agreed, wait a minute, we cannot send innocent people to prison and let them stay in prison because of the acts of the prosecutors. They weren't willing to go as far as Robb wanted to go with passing a law to punish that action, but they still basically told the district attorney's office, no, we're passing this bill and y'all will do this. And I talked to many people, some people within the police department that are on the committees up in Austin and the district attorney's office, and their representatives were shocked that the legislature turned them down. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that the acts of a few individuals, like the trooper in the Bland case, they're eroding away the citizen support. And so I'm more optimistic than Robb. So I kind of hope that.
And I'm glad you are, but you know.
And I want to piggyback on something Robb said, and it's the part about exculpatory evidence. And it's the idea that what has been denied is not something like people think loopholes. You know, a lot of times people think lawyers win by exploiting some little, oh, you didn't file the right document, or you didn't do this correctly, and so that's what your appeal is about. This is evidence that she withheld, and same thing with Charles Sebesta, with Rizzo, whatever, of evidence of actual innocence, or could tend to prove actual innocence. And like Earl just said, you have Tim Cole, you have Michael Morton, you have a lot of people who testified as to large scales abuses to get Michael Morton passed, to get that act passed, and to show that this isn't loopholes or just things that weren't done right that led to convictions. These are things that were actively done wrong. We have prosecutors actively hiding evidence and doing things wrong, a culture to win at all costs, and not just that, they're rewarded. You know, good prosecutors who actually disclose evidence don't make it to felony chief. Right. They don't.
Can I tick off some items that follow in what you're saying? Michael Morton, the prosecutor in that case, Ken Anderson, he withheld exculpatory evidence that would have led to the actual murderer. And that murderer went and murdered somebody else that would not have been murdered. He hid evidence that was a bloody handkerchief, and they fought the testing of that. Ultimately, it was tested, and the actual murderer was caught. In the meantime, Michael Morton spent 25 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. What happened to Ken Anderson, the prosecutor? He became a judge. And ultimately, when Michael Morton got out of prison after 25 years, what happened to Anderson? Not a thing. He lost his judgeship. No punishment beyond that. He got 1 week in jail, and he probably sat there drinking coffee. Next, you have and Anthony Graves, sent to death row, 18 years. They withheld. The Fifth Circuit found that not only did the prosecutor, Sebasta, withheld exculpatory evidence, he created evidence. He intimidated witnesses into testifying falsely against Anthony Graves. The Fifth Circuit, the most conservative court in the entire United States, found that Anthony Graves had been railroaded by Sebasta, and then he got cleared. And what happened to Sebasta? Just now, years later, he lost his ticket. Well, he's already retired. And when I say lost his ticket, it means he can't practice law anymore, but was he punished? No. And finally, we get now to Kelly Siegler. Kelly Siegler's been shown that it looks like, based on Judge Geist's findings, that there's 33 instances of prosecutorial misconduct and a good chance that Mr. Temple is not guilty. And what will happen to her? She's got a TV show. Will she ever be in trouble? No. So the legislature needs to act. The public needs to be outraged, because the people that are getting screwed here are our fellow Texans. They're the ones that are getting sent to prison. Mr. Morton's our fellow Texan, Mr. Graves is our fellow Texan, Mr. Temple's our fellow Texan, and it's not something new. There's a culture, and it's not just in Houston, it's across the state, because all three of those cases, folks, they were in different counties in this state.
Yeah, in the same vein, Alfred Brown, who was just released like 2 weeks ago or whatever, the DA in that case, I believe it was Dan Rizzo,
Right.
made evidence against him and coerced people to testify falsely.
And nothing's going to happen to
And
Mr.
nothing
Rizzo.
happened. And not Kelly Sigler, Devin Anderson came out recently and said, statute of limitations, we're not going to worry about it.
Well, and when she says the statute of limitations doesn't allow us to do anything to Mr. Rizzo if he engaged in bad conduct, that's an argument that supports passing a law that allows for the prosecution of prosecutors that break the law and doing away with statute of limitations. Because if this district attorney is going to hide behind, well, we can't prosecute somebody who's broken the law because of statute of limitations, then the legislature needs to say, okay, we'll create a penalty for that where there is no statute of limitations.
And that's the example of prosecutors using a loophole to cover their own butts.
cover their own.
That they think defense attorneys use to save our clients.
Guys, this has been a great conversation, but I want to move on to our next topic, and that is the Waller County jail death of Sandra Bland that has been all over the national news this week. It started out local, but has mushroomed into a national topic. And I want to, if we can, play the video and get that up, because I think that is a great place to start this conversation with the video. I mean, there's just so much stuff here, guys, to talk about, and we'll see it on the screen when we get it up. But Earl, I want to start with you as a police officer.
Okay.
You're a former police officer. Your impressions of this video as you watch it, and this guy's stop and his interrogation of her and what he ultimately does.
The trooper in the video, and there's no defending of the actions of the trooper. When you see the video, you will see that he escalated. You have a traffic violation that, in his own words, he was going to issue a warning and let her go on her way. But because she lit a cigarette and refused to put that cigarette out, he's going to light her up now with a taser.
Yeah, I think we got it ready to go. Let's roll it and take a look at it if we can.
I'm in my car, but I have to put out my cigarette.
Well, you can step on out now.
I don't. This is your job. I'm waiting on you. What do you want me to
Oh,
do?
you seem very irritated.
I am. I really am. I feel like this tap is what I'm getting a ticket for. I was getting out of your way. You were speeding up, tailing me. So I moved over and you stopped me. So yeah, I am a little irritated, but that doesn't stop you from giving me a ticket. So.
Are you done?
You asked me what was wrong, and I told you.
Okay.
So now I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. You mind putting out your cigarette, please? If you don't mind.
I'm in my car, but I have to put out my cigarette.
Well, you can step on out now.
I don't have to step out of my car.
Step out of the car. Step out of the car.
No, you don't have the right.
Step out of the car.
You do not have the right to do that.
I do have the right. Now step out or I will remove
I
you.
refuse to talk to you other than to identify myself.
Step out or I will remove
I
you.
am getting removed for a failure.
Step out or I will remove you. I'm giving you a lawful order. Get out of the car now or I'm going to remove you.
And I'm calling my
I'm going to yank you out of here.
Okay, you're going to yank me out of my car?
Get out.
Okay. All right.
25.
Let's do this.
Yeah, we're going to.
Yeah. Don't touch me.
Get out of the car.
Don't touch me. I'm not under arrest. You don't have the right to take
You
me
are
out of
under
my car.
arrest.
I'm under arrest for what?
25,
For what?
7 County FM 1098, just
For
north
what?
of 290, send me another unit. Get out of the car. Get out of the car, now.
Why am I being apprehended? You're trying to give me a ticket
I
for
said
the failure?
get out of the car.
Why am I being apprehended? You
I'm
just
giving
open
you a
my car
lawful order.
door. You just
I'm
open
going
my
to
car
drag you
door.
out of here.
So you threatening to drag me out of my own car.
Get out of the car.
And then you
I will
stop
light
me?
you up. Get out.
Wow.
Now.
Wow.
Get out of the car.
For a failure to signal. You're doing all of this for a
Get
failure.
over there.
Right, yeah. Yeah, let's take this to court. Let's do
Go
it.
ahead.
All right, I
Failure
think
signal.
we've seen the real guts of it here. My first, gosh, out of so many questions, we've heard a lot about manipulation of the video and everything else coming out. But Earl, she was pulled over for failing to signal a lane. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they try to do that to everybody here in Houston, I mean, we'd be overflowing with arrestees.
Absolutely. And you heard her on the video asked, what am I being arrested for?
He never identified it.
And he never even answers that question and never even tries to justify anything that he's doing. He doesn't explain anything to her. He just simply starts escalating the situation. And I've heard the other side of it where she escalates, but as police officers, we were taught to de-escalate situations. One of the things that's very effective, if someone is yelling at you, if you lower your voice and you start talking lower, then all of a sudden they lower their voice, and sometimes they'll even lean in. I did that many times when I was a police officer and arrested someone that started yelling at me, and I started almost whispering, where and they want to hear what I'm saying. Even if they're being combative, they want to know, and she wanted to know why she was being arrested. Worse than that, she even tells him problems that she has, and he completely ignores those. To that officer, the video clearly shows it was all about, you'll do exactly what I tell you to do, and don't question me about legal things. And we talked about the Declaration of Independence, and that's exactly what the king was doing to the colonies. By God, you'll do what I tell you to do. And some men stood up. They pledged themselves, their fortunes, and their good name to say to the king, you know what? We're not going to do what you tell us to do anymore. Right. And that's why I'm so proud of Robb organizing that. Every lawyer that participated when I was president, they each individually thanked me and said, my God, this is the first time that I've read, and it was so moving that I want to do it every year. And so every year I think the numbers have grown.
Thank you, Earl. You made it a bigger deal in Houston too. But may I comment on the tape?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a visceral reaction on my part when I see this, and when I see the way he's abusing her and his mannerisms, his speech, everything about him, and it's scary and it's intimidating. And she's on the side of the road and he's armed. Everything about it is scary, and it's as if he's oblivious to the fact that he is that intimidating to this woman, because she's got some strength of character and she is being less than respectful to him, but nothing that she's doing should incite this kind of tyrannical behavior on his part. What also you catch at the very beginning, he set this up. She says at the very beginning, and I had to listen to this several times before I caught it, but she says he rode right up on her and she moved over to get out of his way. So, and we've all had this happen to us, where a cop gets right up on your butt, on your bumper, and you get out of their way because you think they're trying to pass you.
Right.
He did that to her, she moved over, and then he pulls her over for not signaling. I mean, she probably, like most of us, didn't even think to signal. She was just trying to get out of his way. So he created this whole scenario by riding right up on her, and then she ends up in jail because she didn't signal over that. This whole catastrophe was because of this officer's bad conduct, and he didn't follow his training. Obviously, he's trained better than that. He's a state trooper, which means he's had some very good training. And most troopers, in my experience, are very professional, and they pride themselves in being professional. And as far as every different law enforcement agency, I think they're generally more professional than most. I mean, they pull people over on the highway all the time and deal with combative people. That does not, this whole deal, I'm going to light you up. And here's one other thing I'd add. He did all this knowing
he's being recorded.
that he's being recorded. Can you imagine what he would do if he didn't know he was being recorded? That lady would probably been killed on the side of the road. I mean, this is outrageous police conduct in what it's reflecting, and we see more and more across the country this abuse of, frankly, of poor people and minorities by, let's just call it what it is. That's what it is. I think if she'd have been a blue-haired white lady, I don't think she'd have been treated this way. I think it is abuse of minorities. I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's why she got pulled over. I think that's why she got harassed, and I just think we ought to call it what it is. And it's racism, and it's inherent in our criminal justice system.
We're about at the halfway point, so I just want to remind our viewers, we're going to put the phone number, there it is, at the bottom of the screen, 713-807-1794. Call in with your questions. Also, hit us up on Twitter at @HDCLA_TV. We'll take your questions and comments right here on the air.
Well, Jimmy, I wanted to add to Fickman now that you've done that bump for us. In the sense, Today I did this firearm training and simulation, and it was pretty cool. And the officer told us one of the things that they're trained, and Earl, you can help me on this one, is to remain calm and respectful, right? And so when somebody is yelling at you, you don't yell back, which is why you're quiet. You remain respectful to de-escalate. There's a part of the video where he's like, "Well, let's go." Like he's responding to her aggression with more aggression, which increases her aggression, which is silly. I mean, he had authority, he had the power. He could have de-escalated that very easily, and instead he chose to abuse his authority, and we see all the time. And luckily, like Robbie, you just said, she didn't die at the scene. But I think we have a caller.
We do have a call, so let's get to our first call for the evening. Hello, welcome to Reasonable Doubt. Thanks for calling.
I want to know why did the female come?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Why didn't a female come?
Female officer. Why didn't the female officer show up?
Oh, okay.
I think one did ultimately.
Yeah, we don't see that on the video, and I haven't seen any indication of that in the report. But I want to ask. That's if she did come, that hasn't been made mention of.
And if she did come, it was too late. I mean,
right.
the damage had been done.
I heard the comments attributed to the female officer after the fact, but they're not on the video at all. I mean, I think this caller makes a good point. There's a lot of video that was made after the fact that we haven't seen.
We got another call coming in. Let's get on the phone lines once again. Hello, welcome to Reasonable Doubt.
Good show.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the panel have confidence in the governor's $800 million border initiative enforced by the DPS? I'll hang up.
Thank you. It's not really a topic on the show tonight, so I don't think any of us really know much about the DPS, but
I don't have an opinion on that.
I don't either. Earl?
Well, obviously DPS is investigating this, and I understand that the officer himself has been assigned to desk duty. He's not even been relieved, but
I want to go back to one thing, though, that Robb touched on, and that was, and Damon, you did too, and that was the racism aspect of this.
Absolutely.
I wonder, guys, if this was, Bobby Joe out in Waller County, good old white country girl, for failing to signal a lane.
He wouldn't even have stopped her.
He wouldn't have bumpered her
now,
like he did.
Right.
He wouldn't have even stopped her.
So it's not even. Let's set aside what happened after she gets pulled over. I don't think it's even she gets pulled over if she's a white girl from Waller County.
No. A white girl, a white guy, he wouldn't have stopped her. I would take it a step further. If it was an Asian girl or an Asian guy, he wouldn't have stopped her. I believe she was black, and be a male or female or Hispanic, male or female, that's enough.
I want to turn to the second aspect of this, and that's the death, the hanging aspect, because now we've had two people in HPD custody this week, one today, one earlier this week, also die while in custody. The first one, mysterious circumstances, not really sure what happened there. The second one today was a hanging.
Right.
And so
Also, Waller County's reaction has been, as of today, the assistant district attorney warned to prom disparaging comments about the deceased, that she had marijuana in her system. So what? What did that have to do with her being arrested? It had nothing to do with her being arrested. And it was just a way to make a disparaging comment about this poor woman. It had nothing to do. Marijuana stays in a person's system for 30 days. And she could have smoked a joint or been in the room with somebody that smoked a joint 29 days before that. It had nothing to do with what happened to her being stopped. It had nothing to do with anything. I just think their trashing her is really low.
Well, and the autopsy report came out today, guys, and it says there's no indication of any kind of struggle, so that the death itself doesn't have any indication of a homicide, but it's being treated as a homicide investigation, and they've got the DOJ down here looking over their shoulder. That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, because most of the time the DOJ stays out of these things. We're seeing a more active DOJ now since what happened in Ferguson. Now we have a new, we went a while there without a federal attorney general, and now we have a new activist attorney general who is putting the forces to work, and they should. When there's a death under questionable circumstances, you can't trust local law enforcement to investigate their own. It's why we have so many police officers in Harris County for the last 10 years that have been involved in homicides who all get no billed. The feds should be involved in these things, so I'm glad to see it. I don't think they're going to come up with anything, and I think the DA there is probably wise to do the investigation, as he said, as a homicide investigation. I think that's probably more political coverage than anything else.
But if I might add to that, I believe that this goes along with what I said. You have more people now coming forward demanding that you investigate these things. It hadn't been many years ago that they would say, oh, well, she was in jail and she died and that's the end of it.
Right. And they didn't meet standards, though. They had already gotten in trouble. Waller County Sheriff's Department had already gotten in trouble once a year ago for not meeting standards. Now here it is, a full year goes by. They had no eyes on her. They talked to her via intercom. They knew that she had, by her own statement, that she had issues with depression and had been suicidal, yet they don't go talk to her face to face. She's in jail for 3 days. She's in jail for 3 days, getting pulled over because this guy bumpers her, and then she's in jail for 3 days. Well, I got a question for you. It comes up later, but why is she in jail for 3 days? This lady had a job. She had connections in Prairie View. Why is she still in jail? Why wasn't she released on a PR bond?
Yeah.
Why was she sitting in jail for 3 days and suffering from depression and nobody's checking on her? There's some accountability here that's
not even a misdemeanor offense. I mean, it's a transportation code.
Well, they were going to charge her with assaulting a peace officer, because when a cop assaults you, that's usually what they do, is turn around and charge you with that. So according to what Justin said, they didn't actually charge her, but I don't know.
Earl, drawing back on your police experience again, where is the responsibility of, in the case of Waller County, in the case of what's happened at HPD this week, what's the responsibility of these jailers? What do we need to do better? What do they need to do better in order to, I mean, that's 3 potential suicides or deaths in custody in less than a week.
It's a serious situation when you take someone's liberty away, and when you lock that person up in a cell like an animal. It is very serious, and law enforcement, the jail, and the police department that administers the jail, they have a duty to see that the people they're being kept locked away are safe. And it seems to me that I'm seeing more and more law enforcement not really caring. And I want to kind of correct Rob just a little bit as far as the,
that wouldn't be first.
as far as the
if you need to correct
the older gentlemen and the older ladies, not in Houston, not in I don't even think in Texas, but I've seen several videos where 74-year-old man is slammed down to the ground, and he was a white man. I saw a video where a lady that I believe was 64 years old, she slammed down to the ground. She was a white lady. And it appeared from the videos, and I know nothing about those cases themselves, but their violation was that they didn't immediately do what the police officer told them to do. And we were taught that if you're going to arrest someone, you're going to take someone's liberty away, then you have a duty to tell that person why you're arresting them. Mm-hmm. And unless if there's some sort of safety issue that causes you to have to take immediate action, then you have a duty to tell that person why you're arresting them. And you don't, in that video, you don't see that.
No.
I think abusive cops will abuse anybody, really, but I do think that racism is inherent in our criminal justice system.
And no, I agree with you. I'm not making the argument there. I'm just saying that there appears to be police officers that go unchecked.
Yeah.
And there are things in place, like the Houston Police Department, for example, put in place Internal Affairs Division. And I saw a great improvement in the conduct of the police officers once the Internal Affairs Division became in place and was serious about doing something about it.
Do you think they are, Earl?
The district attorney's office, the point I'm making is they don't seem to have any checks and balances. Mm-hmm. They do what they want to do, and when we go forward and ask Miss Anderson to do something about. She makes excuses why there's nothing that can be done.
Yeah.
Continuing to support prosecutorial misconduct will cause more and more misconduct.
That sends the wrong signal.
So do you think the public views defense attorneys as the IAD for prosecution, prosecutorial misconduct, that kind of stuff?
I'm starting to see, and I'm, like I said, I'm truly optimistic. So I'm starting to see that more and more people are looking at the criminal defense bar as protecting their rights. One of the judges was talking about, the armed services, they have a function, but the occupation that has the greatest responsibility for the constitutional rights is the criminal defense bar. If we don't do our job, then each and every citizen loses their rights.
I want to jump ahead in the outline I gave you guys a little bit. I want to jump to the PR bonds because you brought it up about Sandra Bland should have been on a PR bond, and I think that's a good way to segue into this because
and tell us what is a PR bond?
Yeah, so a PR bond, for those who don't know at home, is what we call personal recognizance bond. That you don't have to post money, that you're released on your own recognizance, the promise that you will come back to court. And they're very rarely used now. They used to be used quite frequently. Yeah. And Rob, you said she should have been released on a PR bond. The fact is, I almost don't think she even should have been that. She should have been given a ticket for failing to signal if that was where the officer wanted to go, and then let go.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
if she was going to be put in custody, she should have been considered for a PR bond.
Exactly.
Given all the factors. I mean, this is not a person that was going to run away or anything. She has a job. She came here for a job. The slightest inquiry would have revealed that she was a good risk to put on a PR bond. And instead of being put on a PR bond, she sat in jail for 3 days, apparently, which was enough for, if she did in fact commit suicide, to cause her to commit suicide. If she'd been released on a PR bond, she might still be alive. That's why I suggested that.
Rob, compare the federal system with the state system, where you're charged with a federal crime.
Sure.
You're almost always, unless you've got some compelling reasons, you're going to be given a personal recognizance.
There's people that are charged in federal court, as you guys know, that are charged with massive fraud cases, that sign PR bonds. Basically, it just means they sign on their signature and promise to come back to court and maybe have to report to a pretrial release agency once a month. And they may be charged with defrauding the government out of $500,000 because it's a federal charge they get out on a PR bond. But then you take somebody and they're charged with stealing a $200 item from a store and they don't get a PR bond from Harris County. The numbers, you want the numbers, Jim?
Yeah.
I've got the numbers. The Harris County Pretrial Services 2014 annual report came out recently, and it's not something that the judges want you to know, but I'm going to tell you that in 2014, 84,000 people were arrested in Harris County. Of the 84,000 that were arrested, 52,000 were arrested on misdemeanors, and just about 32,000 were arrested on felonies. Of the misdemeanors, 52,000 people arrested on misdemeanors. You know how many were released on PR bonds in Harris County?
200.
I'd be surprised if
Of 52,000 people arrested on misdemeanors, and we're talking about like driving while license suspended, possession of marijuana, 52,000 people arrested on misdemeanors, 4,500 total were released on PR bonds by 15 county court judges.
I'm surprised it's that high.
It's less than 10%. Now listen on felonies. On felony, you have 32,000 people were arrested in Harris County on felonies, which is about 1,500 cases per judge. The total number of people that were released in 2014 on felony PR bonds, it was 344. 344 human beings got released, and that is less than or approximately 1% of all the people that were charged with felonies, and actually less than 10% of misdemeanors. We have this big issue now. They're talking about jail overcrowding, and we're having to ship people to Louisiana and pay $50 a person to keep people in jail. And even the sheriff himself has said we can solve this problem if the judges will grant PR bonds. That's what the sheriff himself said, because most of the people that are in custody in here in Harris County, there's 10,000 in custody in the jail on any given Sunday, and he's having to ship them out because there's too many there. Most of them are pretrial detainees, meaning they're people that haven't been convicted. They're people that are supposedly, presumptively innocent in our society.
Right.
That the judges, because they can't afford a bondsman.
But isn't the biggest problem, Rob, is the fact that, like in federal court, as a defendant, and as the lawyer, you're always going to get a hearing before a magistrate where you can present evidence of risk of flight, danger to the community, ties to the community.
They do
Whereas in
analysis.
The state court, you don't have those hearings. It's just because there's 84,000 people being arrested, they just mill them in. And doesn't that mean we have to have a shift in how we
The
set
judges
these
need to
bonds?
change the way they do things, but they don't have the will to do it yet. They need to get the will to do it. Here's the way it works in state court is people are arrested. They are interviewed by pretrial services. There is a risk assessment done. Many people are found to be low risk. I'm talking about misdemeanors charged with nonviolent offenses. Many people, over 10,000 people, are found to be low or moderate risk with no prior record. There's about 12,000 actually. Last year there were about 12, 13, 14,000 that had low to moderate risk, meaning that total assessment of them, that they were low to moderate risk, and the magistrates in the jails, they're there 24 hours, they're the ones that decide, make the initial recommendation whether or not these people should be released on a PR bond so that they can get out and go home and go to work. And what do? They deny it. They deny it, and they deny it, and they deny it. And the reason they deny it is because the magistrates that make the determination on whether or not people get PR bonds, they are employed at the will of the judges. And they are afraid of the judges, and they're afraid they'll lose their job, because in past, when you had magistrates that set PR bonds to some people, if they set too many, they didn't get their contracts renewed. So what we need is a schedule. We need the judges to agree on a schedule that if a person meets this criteria, just like we have a bond schedule for people in this county, if a person meets this criteria, the magistrate should, a presumption that they should set a PR bond for that person. And if they did that for all these people that are low risk, low to moderate risk for being released on nonviolent offenses, there's about 14,000 people they could release in triple the number of people just on misdemeanors, and that would solve this jail overcrowding. And if people started realizing that the people that are paying for this are the taxpayers, the people that are benefiting are the judges.
But isn't the real problem the bonding companies?
That's part of it.
They're part of it.
I wanted to add to this. The purpose of a bond is not for the county to make money.
Right.
It's just to guarantee a way of assuring you will come to court. Right? And like Robert said, a lot of these misdemeanors are DWIs, driving while license invalid. These aren't people who are liars or who have no crime of moral turpitude. Possession of marijuana, I mean, that's silly. These people will come to court. They just want to get out of jail and go to work. They know their court date. They will be there. They will deal with their case the same way they would if not. I think the fact that these bonds are so high and so abusive takes away from the fact that these are just there to guarantee you're going to come to court and not make money and not induce a plea.
Well, there's
a good example. Let me jump in here just a second. When you talked about marijuana, the state legislature finally came around and said, you know what, police officers should be able to write a traffic ticket, and then that person would show up to court.
They don't have to go into custody.
The judges opposed it. The district attorney opposed it. Other counties tried it, and it worked really well. But in Harris County, we don't want to do that. And let me, as a police officer, when you arrest someone, you take someone into custody, you are going to spend, going through the process, probably 2 to 3 hours, and that's quick. That's getting back out on the street really quick. You've got an 8-hour shift, and by arresting someone that was smoking a joint of marijuana, you're going to be out of service, not responding to robberies, rapes, important calls for service, because you're booking someone on a misdemeanor, putting them in jail so they lose their job, and it's horrible.
There's a motive here too, and there's a long history here. About 50% of the people, we said about 84,000 were arrested last year. The statistics show about 50% make a bond using a bondsman, okay? And about 10% get the PR bond, or actually less. So there's about 5,000 that get a PR bond. And the reason the number is so low is because there's all that big group of people that are not getting out that stay in jail.
Right.
And the reason is because the judges don't want these people to get out of jail. And the reason is real simple. It's something called a plea mill. We've talked about it before on this show for years. And for our audience, this is the way it works. May I explain it?
Absolutely.
All right, the plea mill works this way, folks. People will get arrested on Friday. If they're too poor to make a bond, that means they don't have $150 to hire one of these bondsmen. And if they don't get a PR bond, let's say on a possession of marijuana case or a driving while license suspended case, they sit in jail for the weekend. And it means on Monday, after they spent the entire weekend in jail and they're too poor to get out, on Monday they are brought to court on what's called a chain. And it looks like something out of a slave galley. They come in chained together in orange jumpsuits, they're put in a holding tank, and then they're assigned a lawyer, if you want to call them that. They're assigned a lawyer for the week. Who will represent 6, 7, 8 people every single day in that particular court, and that lawyer is beholden to that judge to get paid. And what will happen is, about an hour and a half after they're there, the lawyer will bring those 6, 7 people out, and they will plead them all out. 90% of them every friggin' day. And the reason that happens is because they're given what's called a Hobson's choice, which means no choice. Here's the choice they're given. The prosecutor will say to them, okay, if you plead guilty, your sentence will be 5 days and you'll get out tomorrow. If you want to plead not guilty and fight your case, then your case will be reset for a month and you can come back for your trial a month from now. Now let's do the math. If I plead guilty, I can get my liberty. If I plead not guilty and try to fight for my liberty, I have to stay in jail. Kind of ironic. But the bottom line is that in order to secure their liberty, poor people have to plead guilty. And that's wrong. And the people responsible for that are the 22 district court judges and the 15 county court judges, and primarily the county court judges, because really on low-level offenses, misdemeanor offenses, that's where these bonds should be granted, PR bonds. You can't expect a district court judge to grant somebody a PR bond on some serious felony that's a violent allegation. We can't expect that, but we can reasonably expect judges to grant it on low-level misdemeanors, and they have every excuse in the book, but the truth is that the assessment done by pretrial services show that a large percent of the people that qualify for PR bonds are not getting it, and the reason they're not getting it is because the judge wants the plea mill to go. They want to move the cases. They want to move their docket, and why is that? Bottom line is because for these judges, what's more important is efficiency and moving the docket rather than justice. And I tell these judges one last thing, that when you die, nobody's going to care how fast you moved your docket. They're going to care about the quality of justice in your court. And if you move cases like this, there is no justice in your court.
Well, Rob, Earl, when y'all talk about pretrial services, I mean, who is that? Do they work for the county? They work for the judges?
County agency in the building, and it's sort of unknown because they're ignored. For many years, it's on the 12th floor of the courthouse, and for many years they were co-opted, and the judges were using this agency, which is supposed to supervise people that are released on PR bonds.
So is this an independent agency, or is this
It's a
just
county
another
agency.
wing? Okay,
it's a county agency, and they answer to the judges, basically. And they have a brand new supervisor. And because so few people, 5,000 or less than 5,000 a year, are getting PR bonds, they're sort of underutilized. So what happened was, for about a 20-year period there, they were being used by the judges to supervise people that were on bonds with hired bondsmen. They were given conditions of bond. They were given conditions of bond by judges, and they were released on bond with a hired bondsman,
right.
And they were doing the job to help the bondsman. And finally, people said, well, that's not right. Why is a county agency helping hired bondsmen, private industry? And so they were stopped.
And at that point in time, they were acting like parole.
Acting like lower it,
parole.
But isn't the big issue here that, you know, this is a financial thing, and until we reach a crisis on a budgetary standpoint, where commissioners court will go to the judges and say, look, we have to do this. You know, until we reach that point, there's not going to be any motive to change, is there?
I absolutely agree with you, and we have reached that point. Harris County has had a record of, we got too many people in jail, let's build a new jail.
Right.
A while back, the voters said, you know what, we're not going to spend any more money on building more jails. You're going to have to do something about this. The public started seeing things like Robb was talking about, where people are thrown in the jail and they shouldn't be there. The district attorney's office would say, we got all of these people charged with crimes. We don't have enough prosecutors to prosecute them all, so we need 50 more prosecutors. And the county was giving them more prosecutors. Lately, unless if the economy has gotten that much better, when the economy really got bad, I know during Lycus's administration, they were told, you know what, you lost that prosecutor, he left, you're going to have to work short. We can't give you another one.
Yeah. And I did hear that they're going to open up County Court 16. They're going to add a new county court.
Which if they use that, I know they won't, but if they use that to alleviate some of the high cases in the other courts, fine. But what ends up happening when you build new jails and you get more prosecutors is you need more crime, right? You got to use it. You got to justify it. And so there's no point in building new jails. There's no point in more prosecutors. I mean, the solution to crime can't be let's just punish them harder and punish more of them. If that's not working, go to another plan.
Let me add something. When I was a street officer, when I was a detective with the police department was required to investigate cases. When I became a prosecutor, I started seeing that police officers just called intake and said, I've got Robb Fickman arrested. I want to charge him with assault. And they would say, go ahead.
Charge him with something worse.
It was like, no, what evidence do you have or anything else? If the police officer asked, then charges were filed. If you don't make the police officers investigate, you have a human, they're human. They want to get rid of it as quickly as possible. I learned a while back, and I was totally shocked by this. It came up in Lycus's administration, where the police department, the Houston Police Department, actually has a rule that before you take a person in custody, the district attorney has to approve charges. So people are getting charged with very little investigation, especially in your serious crimes where the person might be innocent, but it looks pretty much like he's guilty, then he's charged with a crime. And we've got to stop that behavior.
Yeah.
And I believe if you're poor or a minority, it's much easier to look like you're guilty of a crime.
And on that note, we're going to have to wrap it up, Damon.
Yeah,
guys,
good.
Robb Fickman, Earl Musick, I appreciate you guys being on the show.
Thank you.
We're going to be back next week. Well, I'm sure we'll have some more topics to discuss. We'll probably have some more on this Sandra Bland death investigation, but I want to thank all our callers tonight. And I want to thank you viewers at home for tuning in, and join us next week and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook, where you can get updates for the show and see all of our video clips will be uploaded to YouTube every Friday after the show. So we hope you will join us next week. Thank you and good night.